Hello, Facebook. Welcome to On My Shelf. Today we are going to talk about a very well-known book called the Screwtape Letters. It's from C.S. Lewis. I don't have an individual copy of it. I have it in a collection of C.S. Lewis books. But the Screwtape Letters is very well known and very brilliantly written. You probably have already heard about it. But I thought it would be a good tie-in with the sermon that I gave yesterday, which was about the importance of commitment in prayer and how we need to commit to things and we need to commit to doing what God has called us to do. Because I think the Screwtape Letters has a brilliant reflection on what that struggle looks like once we've made the commitment to maintain it. And I think it's very insightful. If you haven't read the book, you haven't heard of it, the Screwtape Letters is written as a series of letters from a demon in middle management named Screwtape to his nephew Wormwood, who is in charge of a particular human being before and during World War II. And his job is to keep this human being, whose name you never hear, from becoming a Christian and from staying a Christian. And so the whole point is that Screwtape is giving Wormwood advice on how to corrupt this human being. And the reason why it's brilliantly written is because C.S. Lewis has such good insight into what really seduces us, what really gets us to lose our focus, to lose our commitment. One of the things that happens early on is he talks about how Wormwood Screwtape in his experiences in the past, he would simply distract people with real life. And so if they were starting to think too much about God and too much about their salvation, he would distract them by looking at the bus and thinking about how hungry they are and just these normal everyday appetites that just get them off track. And so you distract them from the very important and the very eternal with very small temporary things. He also makes some really insightful observations about the way different ideologies and political issues will distract us, because he talks about whether he should make the patient, this human they're trying to corrupt, when World War II breaks out, should they make him a pacifist or a warmonger? And he says that it doesn't really matter which one you make him, because either one can be a distraction as long as he makes that political ideal more important than being obedient to God. And so making him an extremist of either kind is good. And that's obviously very insightful for us, that oftentimes we will take certain issues and say, this is what it means to be a Christian, and this is what all Christians have to believe, or all good Americans have to believe. And we'll focus so much on that issue that we make it more important than actually following Jesus. And that's very, very common in Christianity. We'll make theological issues more important than following Jesus. And in his own name, we'll say, Jesus wants all people to do this thing, or Jesus wants all people to support this thing, or we make these package deals of Jesus and this other thing. And we think we're doing God's will, but in fact, what we're doing is we are getting distracted from the gospel, or getting distracted from following Jesus. And so the Screwtape Letters it's brilliantly written, and it covers a lot of different subjects, a lot of different areas as this man goes through his life and is tempted in different ways. And just the way that he writes it makes it very, I keep using the word insightful. It really, for me, it was very formative in kind of understanding the spiritual significance of our everyday lives and the values that we have. And he talks about how when a person goes to church, when the patient goes to church, the best way to get at the patient is to make the patient focus on the things he doesn't like about the people around him in church, and make him so distracted by little quibbles and little problems in the church that he doesn't focus on what the church really is. It's great because you get to see the demon's perspective. And he says, it's been a while since I don't remember exactly the wording, but basically, don't let him ever see the church the way we see it. This vast kingdom spreading out across the world and across time that terrifies us demons. Let him only see the woman with bad breath next to him, or the man who keeps coughing, or the person who's poorly dressed. Make him see only the the part of the church that's around him, and make him focus on the wrong things. And you read this and you think, oh, well, that's exactly what I do. I don't see things in an eternal perspective. I don't see the church for what it really is. I just see the people next to me and the things I don't like about them, or the things about them that make me uncomfortable, or I wish this thing were different or that thing were different. And it's amazing how often, C.S. Lewis points this out, or through the course of the book, you realize how often it's not the big things that pull us away from the faith. It's not the big questions about suffering and salvation and the truth of Scripture and all these things that we like to have big debates about with atheists and things like that. More often than not, it's the very little things. It's the distractions that pull us away from our commitment to God. And it's not even necessarily when we reject God and we reject Christianity. It's when we just get distracted enough that our Christianity, our faith, doesn't really mean anything anymore. And I find that really powerful, the way he describes the patient's relationship with his mother and how they kind of attack each other, and how they focus on them. The way they see themselves is perfect, and the way they see other people is, it's just really interesting the way he describes these mental processes, and turning things on their head by looking at them from a demon's perspective is really fascinating. But that's ultimately what I learned from the Screwtape Letters, is a different way to look at the battles that we face every day in trying to stay faithful to commitments that we make to God. That the battle for faith is rarely won in huge climactic confrontations. It's usually won in very small daily decisions. The decision to which appetite am I going to satisfy? Am I going to sleep in, or am I going to spend my time reading my Bible? Am I going to be compassionate to that person, or am I going to focus on their faults? Am I going to be selfish here or be selfless here? And you have all these little decisions and all these little moments that set up patterns. And those patterns are what move us in different ways. They move us toward our destination. I kind of think of it as like rowing a boat. If you've ever rowed a boat, you know that, especially in a canoe, if you've ever rowed a canoe, you know that it's tricky to get going straight where you are, where you're going to be. And so you sometimes switch sides. And when you have two people rowing a canoe, and if you were to chart the path of a canoe, it looks like this. And the point isn't where the direction that each individual stroke takes you. The point is, where does that pattern of back and forth ultimately lead? And we like to think that our lives and the directions of our lives are made by big decisions that set us off on a path. But it's actually a series of small decisions that move us in a direction and show what really matters to us. So I highly recommend the Screwtape Letters. It's a fantastic book, and I know there's a great audiobook by John Cleese that I listen to that I think is fantastic. But yeah, I recommend that you read it and really think about it, and think about the ways that you face the battle to be faithful to God in little things every day. That's what I have to say about Screwtape Letters. We have one more sermon in our sermon series on prayer, and we'll do another On My Shelf. So there's one more On My Shelf left. And then when we get into September, I think we're going to return to the deleted scenes format. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you're local, we hope that you'll come and join us for worship. Either way, we hope to see you again on Facebook next week when we'll do another broadcast. Thanks so much.